You like wide and soft and you cannot lie. Direct sound is too dry. A basic patch is flat like a line, so you modulate the time with some chorus. Say what? That's right, synth addicts. Today we're gonna talk about chorus. By the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of how you might want to use it in your sound design. Syntorial, Syntorial, Syntorial. Hey, I'm Michael Carrillo, aka Hex Spa. Welcome to my channel. I'd like to thank my subscribers and those of you who have clicked my links. If you want to see more content like this, then visit the description for more details. And on the way there, click like and subscribe. I know that effects might not be considered pure synthesis, but it's a widely known fact that many of the sounds you hear on today's recordings are heavily processed. This is particularly true for electric guitars and synths. Guitarists are well known for their pedal boards and effects racks, and oscillators and filters are all well and good, but you really start to be able to put your unique stamp once you add effects. We've already discussed reverb and delay. Interestingly, reverb, delay, and chorus all use a copy of the direct signal to create their effect. Whereas reverb is many echoes in a succession which fades out, and delay is individual discrete repeats. Chorus is about a 30 millisecond delay, but then that delay time is modulated with an LFO blended back in to create the shimmery effect. Given that you're combining a copy of the direct signal with itself, you're going to get phase issues. This is normal, but this is what leads to chorus's softening effect. Some choruses are mono, but today choruses are stereo, and that's what people use the effect for most often, to widen the sound. At the end of the video, we'll recap the 4 ways we have to wobble, warp, and potentially widen our sound. Pulse width modulation, doubling and detuning, both of which are mono, and then chorus and unison. Let's get into it.
Today's lesson is chorus. We're going to go into chorus rate and the types of pulsation. Chorus is an effect to spread out your sound. It also softens the sound. It's an old effect. Nowadays we have mono-compatible stereo wideners, but sometimes you want that classic chorus thing. I know some of the older Roland synths had great chorus. I think the Juno 106. So here we go. Right now we have just the chorus knob. So here's our default saw sound. But then as we bring up the chorus, we notice that there's more pulsation. We also know that there's more widening. I would say that the widening effect doesn't really increase past 50%. It just sounds like the synth gets louder. But in mono, we definitely have more pulsation. So let's do these little challenges. For this demonstration, we're going to go into chorus rate. What the chorus is doing is sweeping a comb filter up and down the audio spectrum at a slow rate compared to a phaser or a flanger. So let's mix it in. Here's at a 0 setting. We're almost just getting a single phased response. It's not moving, but yet it still sounds phased. You can hear it going like this. Fast, basically twice as fast. And that almost sounds like a ray gun or something, but that's what we're listening for. Let's go into the challenges. I think it's just the default setting. A little bit slower, but a little bit more wet. That one has a fast rate, obviously. So now we have all the parameters which we had before, the triangle wave and the second oscillator and the sub, mono and legato modes, which, as we know, this is almost like a mono triller. This one smooths out the connections, and then when you add portamento, it bends, but then if you play the notes separately, they don't bend. But in mono mode, the portamento makes them bend. That was in the previous videos. But now we have chorus, as well as delay and reverb, LFO, which can be assigned to pitch, pulse width, volume cutoff, and pan, as well as our filter and amp envelopes in unison. Start button. So let's do the challenges. Actually, like before, I'm going to pause the video and only show you the answers at the end. Okay, the first patch ended up being a square wave on the bottom. I don't think a second oscillator was mixed in, certainly not a sub-oscillator. The cutoff was down with the amp envelope up slightly with a slow decay, a sort of fast attack, but definitely not 0, and a long amp release. The volume was turned up, and the legato mode was turned on with the portamento at 70 milliseconds. Still just one voice. I didn't hear any delay or reverb, and the chorus was mixed up pretty high with a relatively fast rate. Let's listen to it. So I think that's it. Let's get a hint. Okay. All right, yeah, I didn't set that because this should have been set the same as the amp envelope. Than how I had it. Yeah, hear how the filter doesn't decay as much, so yes, I definitely missed that, but that's the patch. Let's do patch 2. Okay, for this patch, I think I got pretty close. It looks like Syntorial has a little bit of a glitch here, but that's alright. So here's the hidden patch. Here's mine. Pretty close. I think we should get a hint. There was some reverb. It's seems like a saw wave blended 50% with a triangle. No sub. Filtered down with a medium envelope amount. Pretty long release and decay and release, and the same thing with the amp envelope at 5,000 milliseconds, and then the amp envelope swells over 1,000 milliseconds. The volume was cranked up. We had some chorus mixed in pretty heavily with a relatively slow rate, and like I said, some reverb. So let's get a hint. Yep, I got it. Let's do patch number 3. I think this one was pretty straightforward. It was just a filter cutoff turned down on a saw wave with 3 voices of polyphony. And the mix was turned up 50% on the chorus with a rate of 1. We have a 515 millisecond release on the amp envelope. And that was it. Just the volume was turned up a little bit. I think that's it. Let's get a hint. Oh, the start button was on. I thought it was off. Listen. Here's the hidden patch. I thought it was this. I guess it doesn't make much of a difference. So, that's patch 3. On to patch 4. Okay, this patch was a little bit tricky. It sounds basic. But sometimes the simple ones are deceptive. So it's obvious that it has a very short decay and a low, well, basically 0 sustain on the filter with just a little bit of amp envelope to get the tick. I'm still not sure 100% that I have it, but it has pretty much an immediate release. Start button is on. I believe it's a narrow pulse wave, monophonic mode. Basically just 50% chorus with a slow rate is the thing that thickened it up. Without, you can hear you can get close, but yeah, you mix in the chorus and raise the volume. I think that's it. Let's get a hint. Yep, we got it. Time for patch 5. Patch 5 was pretty easy, I think. Let's listen to it. Just delay. So there's delay, obviously, and it ended up being a square wave, and the cutoff was here, and that's what created that upper resonance you hear. Hear that whistle? Just a little bit of filter envelope applied with not as short of a decay as the last one, but still pretty short. And the amp envelope is very short with a full sustain. Let's get a hint. That's it. Final patch. This final patch didn't seem that difficult. We obviously know it has chorus. It's got a long amp release. It's held sustain. It has a little bit of a filter. A little bit of a filter, envelope amount with the cutoff just above half. So 375 milliseconds on that. Same thing with the release. And this second oscillator was the tricky one. But again, if you play in the lower octave, that's what gives it away. You might be tempted to think it's a triangle in the higher octaves. But yeah, really not even close. But you come down low and it's far more obvious. Yeah, the triangle definitely makes it softer up high. And he said whenever you have oscillators doubled and transposed, this one happens to be up 2 octaves, that it's going to be the same wave. He's not going to mix in a square wave with a narrow pulse or with a saw or something. So I think that's it. Let's get a hint. Yes, that's it. Okay, as it turns out, there was a bonus lesson here, and what that is about is that now we have 4 different ways to create a sort of pulsing sound. We have doubling and detuning, where we take 2, in this case, identical waveforms and detune them. So here's a normal oscillator saw wave. And then if we were to adjust the pitch of each one, what he was saying was that this is a mono sound. Old synths tended to be mono. I was just reading in Sound on Sound that if you want a vintage sound, what you want to do is turn the start oscillator off and adjust the pitch and keep your sound in mono. Even if you were to double and just put one down 1 cent, you know, it's going to be a little bit more random as opposed to this. Every single time it's the exact same sort of phase relationship. So, but when you start to double and detune these a lot, you start to hear them go out of tune. So that's how you're going to hear doubling and detuning. It's mono, and it's going to be both oscillators the same, at least in the case of Syntorial. And the pulse width is not changing. And that leads us to pulse width, where if we were to assign this LFO to pulse width, you can hear that it's going from narrow to square. And let's compare it again to this octave with double and detune. By the time we get the same amount of warping, the oscillators are way out of tune. But both are mono. So once again, pulse width modulation. And then doubling and detuning. You can hear that the square wave retains its character when it's doubled and detuned, whereas pulse width is totally warping it. And then he goes on to explain unison, how he takes it to be an aggressive sound. And maybe with polysaw sounds, you're going to use unison, because really what you're doing with unison is you're doubling your oscillators. So if you only have one oscillator, you have 2 voices. Now you have 2 oscillators doing the same thing. Except, excuse me, for whatever's happening with detune. So with no detune, it's really just like turning up the volume. Not that much different. But you can detune it. And that's 3. Let's try it up here. Again, not that much different. The volume does seem to be a little different. But where it really gets tricky is when you add spread. No spread, spread. Or you can spread it out even further. So you get an aggressive sound, but you can spread it. Okay, so, and you could even double and transpose your oscillators. Well, you can't transpose here, but technically you could double and detune and then unison it also, but I don't think they do that in Syntorial. It's up to you to try that. I mean, why not? We could try it. 9. As opposed to no unison. And then no spread. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to add more, you know, because it's detuned, whatever. So we already know that if you add it with no detune, then it's pretty much the same. But then you can spread it out also. Or just one oscillator. Not really the same kind of massiveness. Or even 4 voices. And that really comes a long way from just being a single oscillator, you know. So that's pretty fun. And then chorus, he was explaining, is more of a softening effect. So obviously you're not going to get multiple, additional voices. You're not going to double your oscillators with chorus. So that also lends to a smaller sound. But it gives a similar kind of widening effect. It almost gives a sort of a detune effect too. But again, it's widened. And chorus is always going to widen the sound a little bit. Unless you were to process it later in mono, but in this case it happens to be stereo. And then compare that to double and detune. Yeah, similar, but this is in mono, whereas the chorus, it does make it sound a little bit more distant, and that's probably because of the phasiness. As you know, in an acoustic environment, the reflections, the sound bounces off surfaces, and that causes the sound to reflect, combine with the original signal, and create peaks and nulls in the response, and that's called phasiness. So, also in a real room, you're going to have 2 ears, so things are going to be binaural, stereo. So yeah, there you go. So LFO, pulse width modulation, and double and detune are going to be mono, whereas unison can be spread, and I think in most cases it will be. And chorus is also spread, but it has a different sort of sound, so it sort of pushes things back. So stereo, mono, and I'd say unison and pulse width are more aggressive, whereas double and detune and chorus kind of destabilize the sound. So it's kind of like a XY matrix. You could probably plot that out. But there's a challenge for this. I thought there wasn't, so let's do it. Alright, so that's widened. So it has to be either chorus or unison. I think it's 4-voice unison with 0.17 detune and a maximum spread. So maybe that's mono, right? Let's try pulse width real quick. Oh no, I think it's actually not. It's got to be chorus. That sounds like it to me. I have no idea what that is, to be honest. Oh man. Well, it's definitely not chorus. I was thinking it might be pulse width. It's not though, huh? Obviously it's not it. Obviously not. So it can't be that. So it's got to be this. Yeah, and it sounds pretty mono, you know, now that I hear it. Yeah! That's definitely wide. And it sounds like the other one, so I'm guessing. Let me turn my monitors down a little bit. Okay, pretty sure that's it. What did that end up being? It was 4-voice unison with a medium spread. Yeah! Okay, that sounds maybe like a... Well, it was mono. Okay, please be pulse width. Sounds like an old school rave bass. Like Lords of Acid. Yeah! That That sounds wide. Is it chorus? I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like it might be. This chorus has a weird effect that when you mix it in beyond 50%, the dry sound seems to come back more. I don't know why that is. That sounds like the pulse width again, right? Alright, that sounds just like your regular slightly detuned oscillators. And is that just the one with just the 1 cent up, the other one just 0? Yeah, has to be. Subtle, but that's what I think it is. Quiz time. How does chorus affect the sound? I know that he calls it softens, but it doesn't brighten. It widens, pulsates, and smears. Which control changes the amount of widening and pulsating? Well, I would think that widening is the mix. The pulsation speed is the rate. That's where the comb filter is going up and down the spectrum. I'm gonna have to think that's doubling and detuning. It doesn't sound wide. Is that wide? I have to think that that's unison. Sounds wider. I mean, stronger. Watch, I'm wrong. Was that That didn't sound like a square wave to me. That's gotta be chorus. It's all spread out. There's your unison. Does that sound like a square wave to you? Not me, but I guess it's pulse width modulation. It is mono. I mean, it is narrow. Okay, now for real, over to you.
Chorus is a handy effect if you want to make your sound bigger and softer. This is different from unison, which can make your sound more aggressive and give it a harder attack. Be sure to experiment with this in your own synth, and even try parallel processing to get the benefits of both the direct signal and a wetter, wider one. If this is confusing or overwhelming, it's totally normal. Just visit the description, download the free trial of Syntorial, and start learning synthesis. In the next video, we'll talk about a powerful new feature, the mod envelope. Thanks for watching. I'm Hexpa. Peace.